Hello, this is Joseph Aleo and your role-playing game. And on today's show, we are joined by my co-host, Adam Simpson. Adam, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure. Now, we've met online, and I'm not quite sure where you live in the world. I think it's Texas. Is that where you live?
It is.
Well, I'm calling from sunny San Diego, and on today's show, we're going to delve into the Lexicon of Mage. So tell us what you have in store for us.
Well, the World of Darkness line of games from White Wolf had a really great idea from the start with Vampire, and that was to create a rich lexicon for the game. And their innovation was to have these not only be game terms that the player and the storyteller would use, but also be words that were inside of the game world. So, I mean, vampires and werewolves themselves would use these words when talking about their lives and their activities. And so with Mage, we have a very rich lexicon that serves as a great introduction to people who are new to the game and a quick explanation of many core concepts.
You know, I think this is a great idea because I recently started playing Vampire the Masquerade about 6 months ago, and there are a lot of longtime players in the game, and they know the lexicon very well. And so when I started joining the game, it was very mysterious, but also really added a lot of flavor to the game. But as someone new to the game, I'm like, what are they talking about? What is this chantry thing they keep on talking about? So that'll be great. Now, if anyone's listening in and listening in the future, you can participate in real time. Just text us a message. If you have any questions or comments, we welcome them. And I will periodically mention that during the course of the show. But before we go any further, Adam, tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's begin with your online handle.
Oh, yeah. For years, I've been using the online handle Tachyon from science fiction stories. And there are a number of people with whom I've gamed online who would probably recognize that name better than Adam Simpson. I started role-playing tabletop role-playing when I was 8 years old, played a lot of games from TSR and moved on to many more after that. And looking back of all the games that I've enjoyed, Mage the Ascension is really my favorite. So I'm happy to have a chance to discuss that with other Mage fans today. I have been with the game of Mage since the beginning. I remember playing World of Darkness games with my friends. We did Vampire. We moved on to Werewolf when it came out, and I started seeing advertisements for Mage, and I was excited right away. So when first edition came out, within the week, I had my copy from my local game store and really, really liked what I was seeing in that game. So I kept up with the supplements and was with the game into the very early 2000s, and then around about the time it slowed down, I had to move away from gaming and take care of some other things. But getting back into gaming now, and just really happy to see that there are so many people who are playing Mage 20 and even getting their old books off the shelves and playing previous editions also.
Okay, I have so many questions about that, but I want to go right back to the beginning. What got you into tabletop games? And the reason I asked this is for myself, it was my dad. He was reading a local paper. It's called the Boston Phoenix, and they were talking about Dungeons and Dragons role-playing games. And this is in the early 80s, might have been 80, 81. And he was really enchanted with the idea, and he took us to a local college to see a game being run, and we had no idea what we were in store for. But I was really enchanted with the idea, and so for one of my birthday presents, I think I don't even think it was AD&D. I think it was just the small little booklets that they had, and just trying to figure it out with my friends and play it. And that was my introduction to role-playing games. So tell us about your own introduction to role-playing games.
Okay, well, my own introduction was in my neighborhood. I had friends my age who were twins, and their parents gave them a large bedroom and a really nice work desk. So they had all kinds of tools for model building, electronics, all kinds of books. Their mutual bedroom was the place where I wanted to hang out when I was around 7, 8, 9 years old. They had everything there, and they had first edition AD&D books there. And so I would look through the books and talk to them about those books. We didn't actually get a chance to play that game, but they also had Gamma World. And so we were playing that and had a lot of fun there and just let it go from there.
So you said that Mage became your favorite game, and I'm curious about that because everyone I've talked to says it's very difficult to play. That's a very abstract game. So First of all, why is it so hard to play, and why did it become your favorite game?
Uh, well, that is a good question. I have spoken with some people over the years online who have said that it's a difficult game. I've run into a number of people who also read through it and they get excited about it and they think this is going to be great, but I don't know how to structure my campaign. Where do I start? So, to try and briefly answer the question, I think that Mage can be a difficult game because it is very subjective. It is a game about wizards in the modern day, but those wizards do things very differently from each other, and they even have different understandings of what they are doing. And so I think a number of people will read through the core rulebook and they will say, how do I represent this to my players? I mean, during play at the table, how am I going to discuss a traditional wizard who does things the old way and believes that's real, and a techno mage who does it's like high tech, but it's sort of not high tech. It's like magical special high tech, and he has totally different beliefs from the other wizard. I mean, how do I bring this all together for the four people sitting at my table staring at me when I start the game? So that can be intimidating for a number of people. I would say it became my favorite game because it was so wide open. Very soon after I had the game, I went online and found the beginnings of online fan circles for first edition Mage, and people were excited about the game. They were putting up their own ideas and questions, and this was a setting where you could do so many different things. And even if you ran out of ideas, built into the Mage setting, characters can use their magic to walk away from the regular Earth that we all know and go into these magical, I guess you could say, spirit realms where very different things were happening. There were different conflicts, different figures, and I knew I could do anything I wanted with my game. I could handle any territory that I liked, and that excited me, and it still does today.
All right, I'm not going to dwell on this too much longer because we want to really get to the terminology and Lexicon of Mage. But before we do, I recently watched a YouTube video, and it was a Roll20 game of Mage, actually. And the storyteller is Adam Coble, who's the co-creator of Dungeon World. And one of the things they were talking about on their final show, because they were talking about how they felt about the game that they were in, the strengths and weaknesses of the game, and they really liked it. They really wanted to love it. But one thing that they found very frustrating is the whole premise of Mage is you can do anything you want with your will and imagination, but because of the paradox, it wants to punish you or keep you from doing those things. And they found that very frustrating. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that matter.
Yeah, one of the things that makes Mage so wide open is they have a freeform magic system. That's the term I most commonly hear for it. You look at older role-playing games and there's a spell list. You pick a spell, it works one way, that's it. If you want something different, you need another spell. With Mage, they give you these building blocks, and players and the storyteller can create their own spells and do whatever they want. So if things are so wide open, then how do you settle arguments? How do you settle some clever player who says, hey, if I put this and this together, I can beat everybody and rule the world? And so this has to be dealt with. And paradox is a very flexible and very subtle tool that the storyteller can use to keep things in line and keep a lid on things. Unfortunately, many players see paradox as this limit. I can do a little bit of magic, but if I do a lot of magic, then this block falls on me and ruins my fun, and I wish I could just cut loose and do things the way I want. And it takes some time for a storyteller who has an understanding of the game to introduce the core concepts to the players. And one of those core concepts is paradox is not this thing that is blocking you from doing what you want, and it does not make you weak when you want to be strong. It's really not what paradox is about. It's a big world out there. There's a lot of people, and when you go out and do your thing and start talking to people and learning what's going on, there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be different points of view. There's going to be stuff you never even thought of. And what you thought was such a great idea yesterday, today it doesn't look like such a great idea. You got to change this or alter that, or you know what? Toss it over your shoulder. Here's something better. And that's the idea with Paradox. As you work your magic, as your character learns more about magic and grows stronger in it, you realize that you didn't understand it as well as you thought you did. And other people's magic is affecting yours. And as Satiros has said so eloquently, when you change the world changes you. Paradox is supposed to be part of that equation. Paradox is that idea that you cannot just do whatever you want and expect people to love you. There's going to be some disagreement. There's going to be some learning on your part. There's going to be some maturity, and you're going to have to adapt your tactics. And so I could go into a longer discussion about how that affects mechanics, how that affects gameplay, but I think we wanted to get to the lexicon today.
Yeah, you're right. And I think I just opened up a can of worms. We will definitely save that for another show. So yes, let's get into the lexicon. What do you have for us?
Okay, I took a look at the lexicons in first edition, second edition, and also revised. I took a look at the lexicon from Mage 20, and it is significantly larger. It has the same core terms, but a lot of new things added for flavor and interest, and a lot of great stuff there. But because the core terms have been the same for so many years, I'm going, and are still the same today, I'm going to focus on those, and we'll see how many we can get into our episode today. And the nice thing about going down a list like this is when we run out of time for the episode, we can resume it at some point in the future and pick up right where we left off.
All right, so before we continue with this, what was your criteria for the words and terms that you chose?
Terms that give people a basic understanding of what is happening in Mage, a basic understanding of the magic that player characters are using and being affected by, and terms that have not changed over the years.
Well, I'm very excited about this because I know there's a lot of people who are longtime Mage players and they know these terms very well. But I'm a newbie, and I'm making my way through the rule book. I'm only about 150 pages in, and it's a crash course, and there's so many different exotic words that I've forgotten a good chunk of them. And I know through repeated exposure, I'll become more acquainted and familiar with them, but I'm still a noob. So let's get started. Tell me what I need to know.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try to go over this in roughly alphabetical order, but some terms are closely connected to others, and so it will not be 100% alphabetical. But we're going to start with the word Arete. I mispronounced this for a long time, but this is a term that means a mage's level of understanding with magic, their overall ability to learn new abilities and new concepts of magic. Arete is a game mechanic that goes from 0 to 10, and so there's a number on it on the character sheet. But in the world of Mage, there's of course no numbers on it. When one mage is talking about another mage, you can say, well, he has a very strong Arete, or his Arete is very well developed, or something like that. But a mage with a high Arete can learn a powerful spell and use it effectively. A mage with a low Arete can hear about a powerful spell or a powerful ability or concept in magic, and they just wouldn't get it. They just wouldn't understand. It's like, well, I think I understand the basic concept, but I try to put it into practice, and I can see that I just don't get this. And so that is how a low Arete can limit you. Next term is... Oh, I'm sorry.
I do have a question. Again, you have to excuse me if I'm being ignorant here. So is this something where you buy as a dot, like you have a certain allotment of dots that you can purchase at the beginning of the game, or is it something that's awarded later? How does it exactly work?
Okay. Well, someone who cannot do magic has a 0 Arete. And so you start the game with 1 free dot in Arete, which means you are a mage and you can do less powerful effects. And so during character generation, you can take some, I think they're called freebie points, and increase your Arete. Also, with experience points, you can increase your Arete. And that is linked to another game term. Since we're talking about Arete and its increase, there's a game term called a seeking. Now, it's interesting because one of the core themes of Mage is that power and knowledge and wealth and allies and things like that are not enough to advance. It's not enough to accomplish your goals and bring about the change that you really want to see in the world and in yourself. So if those things aren't enough, what is enough? Well, that is wisdom. It is understanding your own limitations and overcoming them. It is building your own character. Basically, self-improvement. So when you talk about the term Arete, that is just raw ability for learning and using magic, and just that. However, if you want to increase your Arete, then the mage goes through an event called a seeking, trying to find higher wisdom, higher enlightenment. And so in a seeking, the books recommend that this be a one-on-one shorter gaming session with one player and the storyteller, where they talk about the things that are very specific to that one mage. In a seeking, the mage will go into a dream or a waking vision or a trance, something along those lines, and they will start looking into other places, other situations. They will come into contact with their avatar, which is another game term I'll cover in a few minutes here. And in a seeking, the mage has to deal with their own personal limitations, shortcomings in their character, bad habits that they have not put aside, limits to their own knowledge of the world, even clashes that they're constantly having with people around them because of some shortcoming in their own character. All of these things are open to be discussed during a seeking. And so the mage's avatar will appear and either guide them through a vision or have a discussion or have any sort of a situation that the storyteller wants to set up. It is, again, quite open-ended. And in that seeking, the mage has to deal with their shortcoming, with their limitation, and try to overcome that. And when they do that, they can spend experience points to increase their Arete. And because they have developed as a person, they've come closer to enlightenment, they are then ready to increase their knowledge of magic and their ability to use it. And so that is how you increase your Arete. Now, because I've mentioned avatar, I can pull that in as the next term in the lexicon.
Excellent.
Avatar is some sort of aspect of the mage's own personality or some being that is very closely linked with that mage. Sotiros Brucato was very, very wise when he decided during Mage 2nd edition that Avatar is not going to be neatly defined. It is not going to be set down in an easy-to-understand sentence or two. It is going to be kept mysterious. And so that gives the storyteller the ability to work with Avatar in any way that they like. Some storytellers say that the avatar of a mage is that mage's subconscious. It's like a part of your own mind, a part of your own self that is only given very, very limited expression during dreams or things like that. And now that a mage is awakened, their avatar has also awakened. And so their subconscious mind can have these vision trances where it will come and talk to their conscious mind, and the mage will get a more profound understanding of their own self. But that's only one option. There are other options. Some storytellers have chosen to say, okay, your avatar is a spirit of your character's ancestor from long ago that is very interested in you and wants to see you grow and develop as a person and accomplish things in the world that they were never able to accomplish, and so they come to you during seekings and speak with you and help you to grow. Other people say that an avatar is a spirit from the spirit realms that has some special connection with that one mage and is interested in their improvement and development. And there are other options as well. As I said, it is very open-ended. It is mysterious. In the game of Mage, the mages will come together themselves and discuss what is an avatar. I think it's this. Well, I disagree, and here's why.
I'm glad you. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm glad you brought that up because I've been reading through the rule book and I must have encountered that explanation at the beginning. But there's so much I'm trying to digest, and as I'm going along, I'm like, what the hell is an avatar again? So, but before we move on, how do you define avatar in your own game? I'm curious about that.
Well, I have run a number of games for people, and I also do not offer a neat explanation to my players. I generally like to go with the notion of the character's subconscious mind is able to process things and think about things in ways that the conscious mind cannot, and is open to influences that the conscious mind is not. And so as the mage, lives their life, their subconscious mind is understanding things, even communicating with magical beings or spirits from the spirit realm and learning things. And there are times when the subconscious will come to the mage in a seeking and say, look, these are things that you have been trying hard to ignore and not think about, and now it's time to think about it. You can't ignore it any longer. That's a rough approach that I take, but I don't spell it out and make it simple for my players. One of my players was even worried and thought, oh no, this is some spirit that is trying to deceive me. And so I said, hey, you know what? As a storyteller, I'm not going to give you a pat answer. Let's work with that. This spirit that's trying to deceive you, well, you go into a seeking and you can't avoid it. You just have to talk to it. And now you've got to figure out, is this thing lying to you or not? Think it through. What is it saying? Put the pieces together. Is this really deception? And the player was forced to deal with it. And in that way, it was, I thought, an authentic seeking. There was something they just didn't want to deal with, and they had to deal with it. And they found out, oh, wait, this is not an enemy.
I love it. That is a great hook that the player gave you. We actually have two listeners. If you want, you can participate in real time. Just send us a text message within the Zcast, and if you have any comments or questions, we'll be happy to answer them. All right, let's move on. What else do you have for us?
Well, next on the list I have Arcane, which of course is a word from English, but as a game term, Arcane means a mystical kind of barrier that the mage is able to erect to keep themselves more unknown to the general public. It is not stealth. It is not like hiding in a room of crowded people or not being seen by someone who's looking for a person. It's having your name mysteriously disappear from a phone book. It is having your Facebook page that you made 10 years ago. It's having errors. People can't pull it up. People ask around, hey, I'm really looking for John Smith. I want to talk to that guy. And the people he talks to, like, they just can't remember. It's like, oh, John Smith. Yeah. Gosh, I don't remember. Was it that guy? I'm sorry, I just can't help you. I don't know. That is Arcane in action. It is helping a mage to keep an air of mystery, a low profile. When negative forces are trying to track you down, it just becomes more difficult somehow.
I'm going to definitely incorporate that into the chronicle I'm working on. All right, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go on.
No problem. The next term I have is Ascension, and that must be an important term because it's in the title of the game, Mage the Ascension. Also, that links to the next term in the lexicon, which is the Ascension War. Ascension is a concept that exists in the mage world, but it is not a game mechanic. There is no number after Ascension. You never make an Ascension roll when you're playing the game, but it is something that mages talk about in the game. Now, people who do not know magic, people who are not mages, they aren't talking about it. They have not really heard about it in any meaningful way. But for mages, ascension is a very important topic. Ascension, which literally means going up, go higher, it has a positive connotation. It means to improve yourself or to improve the world. Sometimes it means both. Yes, I am being difficult to understand on this one, and that is because mages hotly debate ascension. They don't have a clear consensus on what this may mean. And that's appropriate for Mage, because Mage is a game about different philosophies, different ideas, and working out how to move forward when people don't agree. So as appropriate as it is, some mages say that ascension is when an individual increases in their enlightenment, in their understanding, which is connected to their magical ability. They become more powerful, more wise, and because of that, they are a better person and they are in a better position to influence others and make their mark on the world. Other people say that ascension is not something that happens in an individual, it is something that happens in the world. It happens in a large number of people. It is when society becomes more educated, more wise, more virtuous or moral. It is when society improves, and it is the responsibility of mages to bring about that ascension in society. And of course, others say, well, I don't agree with that. I think ascension is when one mage gets better, and then they use their understanding to have a positive effect on society. So really, it's kind of both working together. And so they discuss this, they disagree, and that is what led to the Ascension War, the next term in the lexicon. The Ascension War is a conflict that is occurring between mages and has been going on for hundreds of years, and it doesn't look like it's going to be resolved anytime soon. This is a conflict because mages strongly disagree about how society should improve, how people should view magic, what effect magic should have on regular people, on non-magical people. Should mages be the kings and priests that lead humanity forward, or do mages have a responsibility to advise from the sidelines, or should mages just keep quiet and mind their own business because society has its own destiny? This is a big discussion. Now, to make it more concrete, the larger factions in Mage, two of them are the technocracy and the 9 mystic traditions. Now, the traditions and the technocracy have had a very strong disagreement and conflict for hundreds of years over how to lead society. Generally speaking, the 9 mystic traditions say there is a lot of knowledge and wisdom in man's past. There are a lot of traditions, religions, outdated philosophies that should not be outdated because they're really very good. We should use the best of the past to make a better future. Whereas, generally speaking, the technocracy says, no, the past is the past for a reason. Those were things that held people back, and we want to push aside these old ideas, old modes of thinking, old rituals and traditions, and move to a bright new future that is free from such obstacles. And so mages have this big conflict called the Ascension War, and it is operating on many different levels. On the lower levels, they publish disagreeing editorials in the newspaper. They have discussions online. Different presidents will take over a college and announce a new direction for it. You scale things up a bit, and mages are hunting each other down. They're actually attacking each other and trying to capture each other or even kill each other. You scale it up to the top, and you'll have groups of mages who will go to established locations of the other side and try to destroy the facility and kill or chase away everyone there. So the Ascension War is a real conflict that is taking place among mages in the game setting. Now, I could go on about that, but I think this is a good time to move on to the next game term.
Well, actually, you know what? We're coming close up on the 30-minute mark, so I'm thinking maybe we should revisit this on a future show.
Okay, we could certainly do that.
Okay. Now, just to let the listeners know, we're not always going to be talking about the Lexicon of Mage. For example, next week, Satiris Bricado will return, and Mark Hope will join us. He is one of the co-founders of the Dark Days podcast, and they'll be talking about the meta plot of Mage. And the following week, Antonio Scalatis will be reading one of his short stories from one of the White Wolf books, and it's called Life. And when you return, you actually have written down a list of some of the other topics you'd like to cover. Could you give us an idea of some of the things you'd like to discuss on the podcast?
Oh, well, certainly. Yeah, if when I get the chance to return to the show in the future, we could discuss more of the terms from the lexicon. I also had some other ideas. I ran a online campaign for Mage that, actually, Chronicle, I guess, is the right term for World of Darkness, but online Chronicle went for more than 2 years, and although it was a great Chronicle, I wanted to discuss it not because I had so much fun doing it or because it was so ingenious, but because I learned a lot about how to be a good storyteller, how to prep for a game, how to emphasize the themes of Mage, how to handle a large group of players, how to handle one-on-one sessions with players. So I would like to offer some advice to storytellers, and we could also do a session on how to start your first game. Advice for the beginning storyteller. How do I construct a storyline? How do I put together a game that I think my players are going to enjoy? What do I need to know, and what is just not that important?
You know what? I think we should do that first and then return to the Lexicon of Mage.
We could do that.
All right. Now, before we go, Adam, if people would like to learn more about you, where's the best place to find you online?
Well, I have a blog that I have recently set up for role-playing games, and that is gearsonline.net/fantasy. I've been talking about some fantasy role-playing games on there, but as time goes by, I'd like to start talking about Mage and other World of Darkness games and other topics besides that have to do with role-playing games.
And you can find me online on my website at josephalejo.com. That's ALEO.com. You can also find me on Twitter at josephalejo. I talk about Mage, but very rarely. I talk about a bunch of other stuff. But if you want to learn more about Mage, the podcast, you can find us online at magethepodcast.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at magethepodcast. And you can subscribe to the show on Google Play and in iTunes. And we would really appreciate it if you would leave a review, because that would help people find the podcast. And this week, Joshua Galdan wrote on iTunes that he loves the show. Great job. Keep it up. So for Joseph Leo and Adam Simpson, you have been listening to Mage the Podcast. We'll see you next week.